colleague.
No, I've been inside and out already.
Oh, we did.
No, no, not today. Everything?
Ndabe ngitshela ukuthi can go live. Ndabe SABC. Because I assured them that I will indicate when we're about to start. Okay. Engar. I-team yakho isesecourt. They told me ukuthi they are Undabe ukuthi was starting. Okay, greetings colleagues. We are getting ready to start, and I would like to apologize for the delayed start. I know that some colleagues want to go live, so I'm actually trying to buy a little bit of time for you to get ready. We welcome you, and we are joined by the Honorable Premier of the Province, Premier Sihle Zikalala, as well as the MEC for Finance in the Province, MEC Pillay. This is a media briefing that follows our previous briefing we had, and the Premier is going to detail to us what is the content for today. Without any further delay, I'm going to hand over to the Honorable Premier to take us through the business of today. Over to the Premier.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mabaso. Greetings to MEC Pillay, MEC for Finance in KwaZulu-Natal. We also extend our greetings to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, from the media. We thank you for gracing us once more in this important briefing. As KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Government, we are holding the media briefing in high regard. We hold the media in high regard, as we believe it is an important partner that not only keep the citizenry informed, but one which makes our democracy thick. We convene this briefing at a time when COVID-19 infection and related deaths are showing sign of slowing down. While we are pleased by this positive decline or decrease, we will not drop our guard, and we will continue to plead for vigilance from our people. Maybe before we delve into the business of the day, let us take this opportunity to extend our condolences on the passing on of Advocate George Bizos, who is well known in the country and who have stand for democracy and human rights throughout his life. We equally wish to send our condolences to Gumede family on the passing on of Mr. Mike Gumede, one of those who are known in the business sector, especially in the hospitality industry. This media briefing is a follow-up to the one we held on the 13th of August this year. During that briefing, we disclosed details relating to the province's COVID-19 expenditure by our provincial departments, provincial entities, and the municipalities. The report we presented gave a detailed breakdown on items purchased, the prices at which they were purchased, while it also listed the suppliers utilized. As per our commitment to transparency and accountability, we have decided to take this a step further and disclose the owners or directors of those suppliers that were awarded the COVID-19 related contracts by the provincial departments. We are unable to provide the same detail for municipalities at this stage because the reporting format and the IT system applicable are different. It is, however, a work in progress, which we believe that the municipalities themselves will fulfill that, or we will continue working with Treasury to do that. But the National Treasury has issued new directives, and municipalities too will have to report in a format that will enable the extraction of directors and owners' details. I must stress that we do this of our own accord. It is not because we have been forced, but we have taken an initiative. We have not been compelled or pushed by anyone or by any circumstance. We are merely driven by the desire to honor the contract we have with the people of KwaZulu-Natal. In this report we are presenting today, we are disclosing the directors and owners of companies. The analysis also look at the profile of ownership, including the gender of the owners of a particular service provider or a company. Such analyses help us also to understand where the money has been spent and whether the procurement spend of government is assisting in advancing the radical economic transformation agenda insofar as empowering the previously marginalized blacks, women, and the youth in particular. As stated in the previous report, which we presented on the 27th July, Provincial Government departments spent about close to 1 billion on procuring PPEs and other goods and services as part of the response to COVID-19 in the province. Public entities in the province had by that time spent a total of 4 million of about 4.1 million, and that brings the provincial spend to about 2 billion altogether. It must be noted that this report excludes the 927,271 on COVID-related expenditure incurred by municipalities during the same period. This report is now updated to reflect a total expenditure of just about 2.1 billion as at the 28th of August this year. Our analysis shows that out of this total spend of 2.1 billion, a sum of 810 million was spent on African-owned companies. The total number of African-owned companies used was 235 out of about 392 companies. The spend on Indian-owned companies also is about 622 million, which is 29%. The analysis of the expenditure also showed that the government spent about 26% on service providers which appear on or who appear on the central supply database as being owned by companies which or whose ownership details are not immediately available. However, it is clear that many are well established. Others are well-known institutions, including media, such as SABC and various newspapers, including independent newspapers. The analysis further shows that a total of about 37 million was spent on white-owned companies, and a total of about 1.4% was spent on companies with owners showing a mixed racial profile, while 0.5% was spent on companies owned by colored people on KwaZulu-Natal. There were some suppliers whose ownership details were not registered on the central supply database, and these companies are marked as no details in our table. They received the contract worth about 17 million. Now, coming to just analyzing the spend, out of the total spend of about 2.1 billion, blacks received or were awarded at a value of about 810 million, which is 38.43%. Indians were awarded at about 622 million, and that is 29.5%. Companies that are owned by other companies, either their subsidiaries, they got 26%, and in rands that is 568 million. White companies or white-owned companies got 37 million, 37.9 million, which is about 1.8%. Mixed 31.3 million, which is about 1.49%. And companies where there are no details got about 17 million, which is 0.84. Companies owned by colored compatriots got about 10 million, which is about 0.51. Asians, 9.7 million, which is about 0.46%. Now, this is the total analysis. The total spend on suppliers that have 50 and above percent owned by women, they received about the percentage of about 33% in total. And that tells you that, yes, there is a progress in terms of gender and emancipation of women, but we are not yet there if we still talk of about 33% only. The total spend on suppliers that have 50% or above ownership by the youth received about 310 million, which represent 15% of the total spend. The tables below list the directors of each and every company involved in the KZN COVID-19 procurement disclosure report. We also want to underscore the point that these reports are part of accountability and transparency by the provincial government, and we release them on our own volition and in the interest of the right by the citizens of our province to know. And we further distribute the spend in terms of the amount that were received. There were companies that were not registered on the central supply database. We list them there, and those are companies that are being followed in terms of how did they receive these opportunities without being in the central database. There were also companies with registration, companies that we found that were registered with a registration date being the end of March this year. And we are following up on that because it means the company was registered May before just procuring the PPEs. With regard to lifestyle audit, you will recall that we also made an undertaking to facilitate the process of undergoing lifestyle audit by the executive and senior government as well as SCM officials in the private administration. We wish to give an update and a report that since our last engagement, we have approached the State Security Agency and the South African Receiver of Revenue with a view of getting these institutions to assist us in this task. We have been advised via correspondence about the processes in motion to finalize all the relevant details that will guide the process, but that must come from the national government. We have a confidence in the competency of these institutions, and we are committed and remain unwavering in saving our people ethically and with humility as well as with integrity at all material time. We must, as government, continue to demonstrate high moral standards. In conclusion, we want to reiterate that as we did with the first COVID-19 procurement disclosure report, this report is not meant to pass judgment on the process or anyone or any company that was awarded a contract. We are releasing the information merely to account and to be transparent to our people. Should we find, if we find at a later stage that there was something untoward in the awarding of any of the contract, we will not hesitate to act and act decisively. The list is there and it will be provided in the booklet, but it will also be in our website. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. We'll shoot straight to questions. Can I get an indication of hand? And those colleagues that are following from social platforms, they will indicate via Mr. Mtetwa. There's your number one. I see, I think we're the only hand.
No, I think
Is the other hand somewhere there? No. Okay, go for it.
Hi. Hello, Mr. Premier. Thank you so much.
Can you press your...
Oh, sorry. Thanks, sir. Sorry, unless I heard wrong, you said that there was 17 million companies that you don't have details for. All right. So why were they used? Yeah, how did they get the work? All right. And then you also said you've got companies with a registration, found companies with registration dates from the end of March. How many? And again, how did they get the work? How were they used? And then regarding, there's one company that I unfortunately have to ask you specifically about because I haven't got any answers from anybody that I've tried to contact in government about this. Oh, sorry. Oh, there we go. Thanks, love. So I don't know if you want me to ask now or perhaps afterwards.
You can take that one once you've remembered.
Yeah.
Let's take another question. If there's is there anything coming online? Not yet. We'll hand over to the Honorable Premier.
No, thanks. The companies that were registered at the end of March are about 3, and they are listed in page 4 of this report. No, there are 4, and they are listed. I wouldn't want to mention them, but go to page 4 of the report. You will see them there. They are listed. Those 3 companies and their names are there. And the total spend on those that were registered at the end of March is 1.8 million. I'm sure those that are not disclosed, MEC Pillay will cover that.
Thank you, Chair. I think the first report we disclosed all the companies. We disclosed the amount, we disclosed what they bought. This exercise is meant to give you the owners or directors. To access that information, we went to the central supplier database. So it's there, we know who they are, but when you go to the central supplier database, it gives various categories of information, some of which is listed here. For these companies, totaling 17, that information is not there on the CSD. So that doesn't mean we don't know them, we don't know what we bought and how much, we do know all that. It's just the owners of it. So that will be part of our internal audit process going forward. There's no reason to conclude anything at this stage, it's just a gap in the information. Then also, if you look at suppliers not registered in the database, now on page 4, you see some of them, it's a very, possibly a very simple explanation. 480 Rand for Dischem is probably obviously a petty cash purchase. Dr. Mohammed 720, Contichem 2,500. So those are petty cash purchases where those particular suppliers were not on the database when we looked. Companies with a registration date at the end of March, I think again, we don't want to prejudge anything. It could be a legitimate reason, but in the interest of transparency, we're putting this information out because in the national narrative that has emerged, that was one of the points that were coming up. So we're putting it forward to say if there's anything there, let's see. But this is the first stage of a transparency exercise to put everything out there.
Thank you. Can I take the final round? So you want to have the second bite? But I also have one from the SABC. Jade Lee Colson is asking how far is the SIU investigation and what is going to happen to the 11 officials that were suspended in the blanket saga. And then you can take one and then the team will respond and then also translate in Zulu.
Thank you so much. There is one company that I picked up on called, there is one company that I picked up on known as RGZ Projects. RGZ Projects has been doing business with KZN for a long time. RGZ Projects was awarded 163 million to do upgrades to the GJ Crooks Hospital at Scottsboro. And this company was fingered in the Ngubane report of 2010. It was also mentioned in an auditor's report. And yet it still managed to get business with the state. I'd like to know how that happened. And also, sir, going back to the Ngubane report and other reports that I've been thinking of that have also been released but nothing have come of them. There was the report into the RTI deaths. Nobody has ever been held accountable for that. There is, trying to think what is the name of that lovely big one. But that report, Lennox, just give me a minute over here. Manasseh report, nothing ever came of that. So we've got another report that's been added, and I'm just wondering how much is going to come of this. And Mr. Premier, would you be willing to now publicly to commit to go back and have a look at those other reports and to bring those to some kind of conclusion, and if not, why not? Thanks.
Thank you. We'll hand over to the Honourable Premier.
No, I think the first one is a specific matter which relates to the Department of Health. So it will be correct for you to engage, I think you said it's RDZ. So please engage with the Department of Health because it's the one that is responsible.
Sir, I have them not answered.
Yes, okay. We will get them for you, try to facilitate for you. With regard to other reports, we will try, but once the provincial government has finalized any investigation, we give it to municipalities for municipality to investigate and implement. But if you talk about the report that is provincial, as the question that is asked now about social development and provincial departments, we ensure that because we are a sphere of government. At a provincial level, we will ensure that all reports are investigated and implemented.
Sorry, sir, I understand that, but you also, as the head of the ANC, you're aware of all these reports. You're aware of the Ngubane report, you're aware of the Manasseh report. These things are just lying there, nothing has come of them.
Can I just request that, because this was a special focus briefing.
It all ties in, you know?
Yeah, no, but we are aware, but we'll deal with those, I think, at their own time. Maybe if we can just limit ourselves to these particular issues, because like we're saying, they date back, and then we'll also hand over to the Honourable MC and to get the SABC question answered as well. Thank you.
No, I think, let's be fair. I mean, we're presenting a particular report here, and I think questions directly related to that report would be reasonable. I could say things about the Manasseh report and the extent to which it's processed and what's outstanding, but it won't be my place. I think it's the MEC for Culture possibly would be able to do that, but I do know that there have been steps that have been taken there. I just want to comment on RGZ because it's an African-owned company, which is one of the successful companies in the province, and I don't think it's fair to just smear them with innuendo. If there's something they must be specific about what they have to answer for. You're referring to something in 2010. This is now 2020, and so I think let's be fair. You see, my difficulty about having a balanced conversation about both procurement and empowerment. There's not a single question of the company that received the highest award of 311 million, which is Siyazama GBK Pty Limited. There's no question about it. And you attempt to ask why. Now, it's an established company. They went through a process. They won the bid, fair and square, but no questions about it. And I think that's a little bit of an unbalanced approach to this particular question. And I think there's been a fair spread. In fact, we haven't reached, as the Premier says, the targets that we want to reach. But we think there was a fair spread of opportunity across small businesses, although the big guys still got the biggest slice of it. But we're pleased that 200, almost 200, I think it is, of the total we went to small companies, and that's the kind of spread we want to achieve. This was intended to report on the COVID-19 expenditure with a perspective that has been coming out of the national narrative. It's not meant to be a complete measure of the transformation exercise, because even in those bigger companies, there would have been subcontracting, which all goes into the equation. So I think, I just wanted to say that and just have some balance.
I understand what you're saying, but everything ties in. This is what just hold on, this is what I'm trying to tell you. You can't say you're going to be accountable now when there are reports that are still outstanding that you still need to be accountability for. You can't just wake up one day and decide, okay, well, now we're going to be accountable. I'm saying there are people are expecting accountability, even if it goes back 10 years. That's why we have things like the State Capture Commission.
No, fair enough, but I don't think that this is an occasion to bring that up. But I think the Premier has said that we've noted it, to facilitate a response to you, and I think that you should accept that as reasonable.
Yeah. Now, thank you very much. I think if you follow the rules of the press conference, I will allow the Honourable Premier to also summarize for us in Zulu. Thank you.
No, thanks. Maybe we start with the question of the SABC before we summarize. The SABC asked the question about the 11 suspended officials. The 11 suspended officials are facing the disciplinary action, and that will continue from the Department of Social Development. To summarize in Zulu, we can put, siyafisa ukubonga ubukhona bezindaba esingathathi njengokuthi ingxenye yokubika, kodwa ingxenye yoku-enshorisha ukuthi uhulumeni uyaqhubeka nokuqinisekisa intando yeningi esizweni. Sifisa ukuqala ngokudlulisa umyalezo wokuzwelana nemndeni edlulelwe izihlobo, especially sizwile ukuthi omunye wabalweli bamalungelo abantu nentando yeningi u-Advocate George Bizos udlulile emhlabeni. For that, as KwaZulu-Natal sifisa ukuzwelana nomndeni uwonke. Ngaphe kwalokho siyafisa futhi ukuthi sizwelane nomndeni wakaGumede ngokushona kukababa uMike Gumede, owaziwa kakhulu kwezamabhizinisi KwaZulu-Natal. Sesikushilo lokho, namuhla sethula umbiko osho ukuthi obani abaphathi beyinkampani eyihlukahlukene ezithe zahlomula kulolu hlelo lokunikezelwa kweyinsiza ze-COVID-19. Sikwenza lokhu siyihulumeni weprovince ngaphandle kokuphoqelelwa ngoba ngomhla ka-13 August sathulela iKwaZulu-Natal yonke umbiko ophelele nge-expenditure yama-department nama-entities ngokunjalo nomasipala bakwaZulu-Natal. Siyazi futhi ukuthi uhulumeni usebenza ngokuhlukahlukana, ngakho-ke kukhona esingeke thina sakwazi ukunikezela njengokuthi inkampani ezenza imisebenzi komasipala yiziphi, lokho kuyokwazi ukwenziwa womasipala. Kodwa i-National Treasury isohlelweni njengamanje lokukhanda isystem eyodwa efanayo ezokwazi ukuthi sinikezele i-accountability efanayo nefanele singuhulumeni kusukela kuzwelonke kuya kufike kuma-provinces. Njengoba sasho ngomhla ka-27 July, u-Provincial Government usebenzise imali engaphezulu kuka-1.9 billion eyintweni eyifana nama-PPEs ukulwa nesifo se-COVID-19. Ngalokho siyanikezela-ke namuhla ukuthi yiziphi inkampani futhi obani abanikazi balezo inkampani esikhuluma ngabo kunamuhla. Ngingasho nje ukuthi inkampani eziphethwe ngabantu abamnyama engathi ama-Africans zithole about 38%, inkampani eziphethwe ngabohlanga o ngabomdabu wasendiya zithole 29%, kuthi inkampani ongacaca eziphethwe ezinye inkampani ziko 26%, inkampani eziphethwe ngabamhlophe zithole 1.8%, kwehleke kanjalo. Kodwa siyafuna futhi ukuchaza ukuthi enye into esikhanda sibe nakho kuyimisela ukuqhubeka nokunikezela lembiko ukubheka ngokujulile ukuthi uhlelo lwe-radical economic transformation lumi kanjani. Kusiphatha-ke noma kusijabulisa ukuthi inkampani zabantu besifazane nazo zihlomulile to 33%, but kusiphatha kabi ukuthi asikakafinyeleli ezingeni la singathi zihlomula kahle kufike la ku-50 or more percent. Inkampani eziphethwe ulusha, abantu abasha, zona zithole about 15%, okuveza futhi umsebenzi wokuthi kukhulu okusamele sikwenze uqinisekisa ukuthi abantu abasha bayangena kwezamabhizinisi ngokuphelele babe yingxenye yomnotho wase-South Africa. Mangiqinisekise-ke futhi ukuthi khona esisakulandela, especially inkampani ezithola imisebenzi zingekho kwi-Central Supplier Database, nalezi inkampani noma zimbalwa kodwa othola ukuthi zithole imisebenzi zibe zirejistwe ekupheleni kukaMarch. Angisho ukuthi udaba lwe-lifestyle audit esalithula luyaqhubeka njengoba sasishilo sesiqhubekile saqhumana nama-institutions afanele akumele kube yiwo asiconductela le-lifestyle audit. Lama institutions afana ne-South African Reserve of Revenue ne-State Security Agents bayasazisile ngokubhaliwe ukuthi uhlelo lwabo luzokuxhumana lusukela kuzwelonke nakuma-provinces, and siyafuna ukuqinisekisa ukuthi sizoqhubezela ukuqinisekisa ukuthi lifestyle audit iyenziwa kuwo wonke uhulumeni njengoba sasenze i-commitment. Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier and Honorable MEC. We will adjourn here for today. We'll see you in the next few days. Thank you very much. The briefing is adjourned.